Regular closed session meeting of the EBMUD Board of Directors. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Director Chan,
Present.
Director Gomez,
Here.
Director Katz,
Here.
Director Lenny,
Here.
Gonna be a day like that, huh?
Director Patterson,
Present.
Director Young,
Here.
President McIntosh.
Here. Thank you, Doug, for that. If members of the public are online and wish to speak on agenda or non-agenda items, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. Are there any speakers on any non-agenda or agenda items online, Madam Secretary?
Yes, we do. We have Joe Pangilinan. You should be allowed to unmute.
And is this a non-agenda item?
It is a non-agenda item.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
You
My
know-
name is Joe.
You know
Oh,
the
go
3-minute routine.
Yes, correct. Thank you. My name is Joe Pangilinan, and I am the Chief Steward of ASME Local 444. I am speaking to you today about recognition that is deserved. When any employee at EBMUD wins an award, they are acknowledged at a board meeting. Their picture is taken and they are highlighted in splashes. The recognition I want to give today is for those at EBMUD that did not have the integrity and courage to press the emergency stop button when faced with a clear abuse of power. I came to this board previously and advised a local 444 steward was being retaliated against for merely performing their lawful union activity. A memo was requested, yet no action was taken. We filed a perp charge, and they issued a complaint letter with 2 counts, which included a retaliatory investigation and a retaliatory suspension. Local 444 had to take this grievance all the way to binding arbitration to force the district to right this wrong. The arbitrator agreed with the union that there was no just cause to suspend my steward, and the suspension was reduced to a warning letter. Keep in mind the original level of discipline cited by management was a 15-day suspension, ultimately landing on a 5-day suspension after the Skelly hearing. The MOU details the intent of the district and the union is to recognize the necessity for speedy and equitable adjustment of all complaints as close to possible to the point of origin. Whenever possible, grievances should be settled with supervisors in the department where the grievance originates. It is the intention of the district and the union to eliminate unnecessary grievances and to promptly and equitably adjust all those grievances which are meritorious. The MOU also details the promotion of harmonious relations between the district and the union and the establishment of an equitable and peaceful procedure for the resolution of these differences. The grievance procedure is supposed to be the way to resolve these issues, yet I have found the district does not participate in this process with good faith or integrity. Back to the reason I am speaking to you today, recognition. I would like to give recognition to all those district employees who decided to support a manager's retaliatory efforts against my steward. All the following employees chose not to press the stop button, even though it is engineered into the grievance procedure. For a company of engineers to ignore what clearly is designed to solve problems, this compels me to acknowledge those that lacked the integrity and courage to do what is right. Here are the names of the employees who failed during this entire internal process. All these names can be found on the documentation sent earlier to the board.
All right,
via
you're
email.
gonna have to wrap it up.
Roberto Cortez, Manager of Water Supply. Andrew Dadko, Senior Employee Relations Analyst. David Briggs, Director of Operations and Maintenance. Michiko Morris, former Employee Engineering Manager. Jimmy Ioli, Director of Engineering Construction. I promised all those that participated in this process that they will be named if they did not press the emergency stop button. I intended to keep that promise, and that is why I've acknowledged and recognized these 5 employees. I hope that when you celebrate any employees in the future, like you are celebrating later today, you take the time to think about what they really did during their time here at East Bay Mud. And in closing, when there are no checks and balances and good people look the other way, bad things are allowed to happen. Thank you for your
Joe.
time.
Thank you for your comments. Eric Larson on a non-agenda item. That's our last speaker. Good morning.
Good morning, President McIntosh, board members, and General Manager Chan. Eric Larson, President, AFSCME Local 444. Thank you for the opportunity to follow up on our Chief Steward's comments. And you may think that Joe's comments were kind of extreme, but the callousness that we often face for management, the inability of management to change course, the unwillingness to stop the machine, leaves us few other analogies. We're volunteers. I'm a volunteer in my role as the president. All of our officers, Joe Pangelinan, our chief steward, the rest of our stewards, our other officers, all of our union stewards are volunteers. We don't get paid for our work. We don't get paid for the emotional toll it takes on us. We don't get paid for the nights we lay awake thinking about these issues, the weekends we put into preparing for meetings and arbitrations. We do it because it's right and moral. We do it as a service commitment. We do it because we believe in the integrity of the working class. We believe in the integrity of the people who are working just to try to make a living here at the district, to raise a family and put their kids to school and contribute to society. So when management tells our steward his job is on the line, knowing full well that his son is getting chemotherapy, threatening to take his health care away, we're going to fight. When our member is threatened with termination or retaliation for stopping work because of safety concerns, we're going to fight. And when employee relations fails to stop the train and we're forced to file PERB charges and go to binding arbitration, you bet we're going to fight even if it's costly. And when employee relations puts up roadblocks, refusing to process grievances, insisting on district rights to terminate probationary employees, refusing to mediate solutions, refusing to provide remedies sought by the union, it leaves us little confidence that negotiations will be anything but adversarial. So when you meet with the negotiators today during closed session, I ask that you instruct them to find solutions. That when you talk with employee relations today, talk to them about solutions. When you discuss with management today, discuss solutions. And when you give direction to the Office of General Counsel, direct them to find solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Any further commenters?
There are no other hands raised for public comment.
All right, well, the board will now convene to conference room 8 to discuss closed session agenda item 1 and is scheduled to return here for the regular meeting at 1:15. Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, June 25th, 2024 regular business meeting of the East Bay Mud Board of Directors. We will receive reports from this morning's Sustainability and Finance Administration Committee meetings under item 17. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Director Chan?
Present.
Director Gomez?
Present.
Director Katz?
Present.
Director Linney?
Here.
Director Patterson?
Present.
Director Young?
Here.
President McIntosh?
Here, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So that moves us to our presentations. We have two, and I'll turn it over to General Manager Chan.
Thank you, President McIntosh. So for the first one, the district received the Partnered Project of the Year Award from the International Partnering Institute for the Maloney Pumping Plant and Sobrani Water Treatment Plant Improvements Project. The project improves system reliability, operational safety, and redundancy at 2 critical district facilities. Electrical power upgrades include a new power building at each facility, an electrical intertie between 2 facilities, and an emergency standby generator with advanced emissions controls. The work also included a capacity upgrade to Maloney Pumping Plant from 30 to 45 million gallons per day. Many district staff from the engineering and construction department worked on this project, and some are present today to represent the team and the partnering success of the project. And when I call your name, if you could please step up to the front of the board room. First, Alex Boris, Senior Civil Engineer. Sharon Hu, Manager of Facilities, Maintenance and Construction. Tim Karlstrand, Senior Civil Engineer. Dennis Lingad, Assistant Engineer. Nikki Najdi, Associate Electrical Engineer. Cameron Nauman, Assistant Engineer.
Marguerite,
Terry Ann Reed, Senior Construction Inspector.
do you want to?
Carl Tingwad, Senior Civil Engineer. Here to present the award is Sue Dyer, founder of the International Partnering Institute.
Thank you so much for allowing us to be here today to present this illustrious John L. Martin Partnered Project of the Year Award to this team. Every construction project must form, storm, norm in order to perform. How they do that makes a huge impact on what they're going to be able to achieve. And for this project, they use the collaborative partnering model that IPI has developed over the last 35 years to form into a high-trust team that then can storm using collaboration. And that collaboration creates the norms of trust so that you can create enough trust where there's transparency. And with that transparency, you can become high-performing. So we know in construction that high trust equals high performance. And that is exactly what this team did. And we're all so very proud of them. And it's my sincere privilege to offer them this John L. Martin Partnered Project of the Year Award. Thank you so much for all your good work.
Congratulations to all of you, and thank you for your work on behalf of the district.
Next, the district received the 2023 Construction Project Owner of the Year Award from the Northern California chapter of the Construction Management Association of California. The district's construction program has grown significantly over the years as it makes generational investments in the water and wastewater system infrastructure. Staff have met the moment with innovative construction and program management techniques, which will continue to deliver on those investments. The construction management leaders in the engineering and construction and wastewater departments are present today to represent all those that have contributed. And we have Angela L. Tabani, Senior Civil Engineer, and Tim Karlstrand, Senior Civil Engineer. Here to present the award is Andrew Middleman, President of the Northern California chapter of the Construction Management Association of America.
Good afternoon. As mentioned, my name is Andrew Middleman, and I am the president of the CMAA, Construction Management Association, Northern California chapter. The CMAA Northern California chapter has 3 goals this year, all around key items associated with outreach, primarily education, educating our construction management leaders around the Northern California area, our students. Second would be learning from our past and moving forward with the future so that way we can be a better support to the industry and helping our industry partners move forward on new aspects of delivery and collaboration. And then the third is diversity and participation of all types of different construction management firms, owners, and students that bring that different perspective back together. And we're really focusing on getting to those different areas of not just buildings, but infrastructure and those underrepresented areas. So with that, this year we decided to honor the East Bay Municipal Utilities District with the Owner of the Year Award. primarily because they have been an active participant over the last actually 2 years at an elevated level in a lot of our programs, in participating with what we're doing on our side of the house in meeting those requirements. And in doing so, we started what we call an owners council this year, where owners can get together and just learn from each other outside of where consultants were potentially influencing them. And so they have been a great member as part of that owners council starting this year as well. So with that, I'd like to present this award to the district.
Congratulations and thank you for all you do on behalf of the district. All right, that moves us on to announcements from closed session. There are none required to announce from closed session. So public comment. Madam Secretary, are there any folks online to speak on agenda or non-agenda items?
There are currently no hands raised for public comment.
All right, well, if members of the public are online and wish to speak on agenda or non-agenda items, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. Comments on non-agenda items will be heard now. Comments on agenda items will be heard when the item is up for consideration. Still no public comment online. All right, that moves us to public comment here in person. I don't have any speaker cards for public comment. Wow. For public comment here in person either. So we're going to proceed to the consent calendar. We will now move to the consent calendar to consider items 1 through 12. Are there any comments from the public on consent calendar items?
None.
All right,
I'll move the consent calendar.
all right. We have a motion from Director Lenny, a second by Director Young, to move the entire consent calendar, items 1 through 12. Is there any discussion, questions, thoughts, comments by the board? Hearing none. Do we need a voice vote?
It's sufficient, yes.
All right, Madam Secretary.
No, we don't have to do roll call.
Oh, we
can do
don't.
a voice vote.
We're all here.
All right, I meant individual. Sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that's unanimous.
Thank you. Next, we have Kathy Viatella, our Manager of Legislative Affairs, and Debbie Michael to provide the legislative update. We do have 2 bills that we're asking the board to consider our recommended position. We're going to start with Debbie, who will discuss Senate Bill 1255 on water rate assistance.
President McIntosh and members of the Board of Directors. I'm here to present SB 1255 by Senator Durazo. We are recommending a support if amended position on the bill. SB 1255 is intended to require retail water suppliers serving over 3,300 residential connections to begin providing water rate assistance to low-income residential ratepayers starting July 1, 2027. Water systems would need to auto-enroll, it's an important term, low-income ratepayers, which is defined as a ratepayer with an annual household income that is not greater than 200% of federal poverty level. Assistance would be paid for by a voluntary contribution from other non-low-income ratepayers. Water systems would establish a voluntary contribution amount to be placed on customer bills to provide bill credits to low-income customers. Systems could begin collecting this voluntary contribution on or before September 1, 2026, meaning that systems could collect for at least 10 months before providing a bill credit. SB 1255 requires notice to customers of the contribution and how they can opt out before a voluntary contribution could be placed on their water bill. SB 1255 specifies that the amount of a voluntary contribution cannot exceed 5% for water and wastewater charges on the water bill. If not enough revenue, sorry about that. If not enough revenue is collected through the voluntary contribution to support a minimum level, in this case, what the bill defines as a 10% discount or $5 per month is the bill credit, and also pay for the administrative costs of the water system. Instead of providing rate assistance, the water system must then use the funding from the voluntary contributions to provide crisis assistance. So let's turn now to existing rate assistance programs like EBMUD. So water systems that offer an existing program on or before September 1, 2026 that comply with the bill's requirements to auto-enroll low-income customers and provide a bill credit of no less than 20% could continue their program and not be subject to collecting the voluntary contribution. These are referred to in the bill as the minimum enrollment in bill credit requirements. So auto-enrollment of eligible ratepayers would be based on three things. So customer self-certification of eligibility, a benefits awards letter provided by the residential ratepayer showing that the customer is enrolled in an affordability program like CalWORKS, CalFresh, Medi-Cal, SNAP, SSI, SSP, et cetera. And then customer data from IOU programs like the CARE program, the California Alternate Rates for Energy, or the Family Electric Rate Assistance Program, or FERA. So the bill does require the California Public Utilities Commission to set up a mechanism for sharing this data with water agencies about customers who are enrolled in their affordability programs. So the bill specifies that water systems can require verification of eligibility from a sample of enrolled eligible ratepayers on an annual basis to verify that ratepayers meet that eligibility. Ratepayers found to be ineligible can be removed from the assistance program. The bill does allow systems with existing programs to offer a bill credit greater than the 20% discount and to use different household income thresholds than what's specified in the bill, that 200% of federal poverty level. So with this language, EBMUD can provide greater benefits like we already do in our existing customer assistance program, or CAP. EBMUD's CAP, as you know, provides a 50% bill discount for drinking water and a 35% discount for wastewater charges for our eligible customers. How the bill would impact EBMUD. So EBMUD would need to auto-enroll these new eligible ratepayers. That number is currently unknown and would depend on the data sharing information we would receive, plus customers that would self-certify or provide a benefit award letter to meet the low-income requirement. Prior estimates indicate that we have about 1/3 of the low-income ratepayers in our service area already enrolled in CAP, so around 10,000 households. There's potential that there are about 20,000 other eligible households out there that could be new to CAP. So it's very difficult to estimate the impact of the bill without this additional information. Number one, the number of new eligible ratepayers that we'd have to auto-enroll for rate assistance. And number two, the funding level to be raised by a voluntary contribution to be placed on certain ratepayer bills if we chose that route. This could fluctuate from year to year, depending on how many customers opt out or request refunds. So we've identified 4 scenarios in the write-up. This is starting on the bottom of page 11, I believe. So this is by no means an exhaustive list of scenarios, but there could be other potential scenarios. But for ease of kind of walking through this, these are the 4 that we came up with. Again, we will need additional information. As well, we've identified several amendments that are necessary I'll talk about after the scenarios. So scenario number 1, I'm calling this the status quo, right? So this means that we would meet the minimum enrollment in bill credit requirements by auto-enrolling new eligible customers in CAP, but we wouldn't go forward with a voluntary contribution. So this assumes funding for the CAP through existing or expanded non-rate revenue will cover these new customers that must be auto-enrolled at the current benefit level. So this approach would ensure that EBMUD meets the minimum requirements of the bill. However, this scenario may not be feasible given the unknown number of new customers and the availability of existing or expanded non-rate revenue to cover the additional new eligible customers. So scenario 2, This is status quo, but with a lowered benefit. So for this, we would continue with CAP benefits and meet the minimum enrollment and bill credit requirements, but do not collect a voluntary contribution. Instead, we could reduce benefits for all recipients of assistance by lowering the bill credit that we give or modifying the household income requirements, or both, to provide less generous benefits than what we do through our existing customer assistance program. This could be a solution if EBMUD needs to auto-enroll many new customers and we do not have the funding to cover customers with the same benefit. Number three, scenario three, is CAP, but with a voluntary contribution. So continue with CAP, meet the minimum enrollment and bill credit requirements specified in the bill, and seek to place a voluntary contribution on customer bills to cover these new eligible customers who would need to be auto-enrolled. This approach would likely result in a reduced benefit for all CAP participants or a two-tier benefit if the voluntary contribution revenue is insufficient to cover the program and provide new eligible customers with a commensurate benefit. Scenario four is CAP with a voluntary contribution, but to fund crisis assistance. So we can continue with CAP at the current benefit level and place a voluntary contribution on customer bills should the voluntary contribution not provide enough funding to auto-enroll these new customers. EBMUD would need an exemption from the minimum enrollment and bill credit requirements specified in the bill. The additional funding could then be used to provide crisis assistance. So for EBMUD to be exempt from the auto-enrollment requirements, amendments would be needed to the bill. So this option would give EBMUD the flexibility to expand our CAP program as we are able to enroll customers. But if we do not have enough revenue to cover all the new customers at the commensurate benefit with CAP, then the exemption buys us some time and flexibility. In this manner, it would protect the program. So as we consider these scenarios for EBMUD, we are also thinking about potential impacts. So auto-enrolling new ratepayers will likely require receiving and sorting through data that would be received from PG&E for customers in their affordability programs. This is likely to be time-consuming. Collecting voluntary contributions may have accounting impacts as contributions fluctuate, and we have to update financial estimates of voluntary contribution revenue and what would be available to support new or expanded assistance. Also, due to Prop 218, any cost to implement a low-income rate assistance program, a LIRA program, would likely need to be funded by non-rate revenue or by proceeds from the voluntary contributions. So based on these considerations, we're recommending 2 amendments to ensure EBMUD can keep offering customer assistance that we currently provide. So those suggested amendments are outlined on page 13. The first amendment would allow EBMUD to keep our current cap, and if voluntary contributions do not raise enough revenue to provide cap level benefits to new eligible customers, then instead we would offer crisis assistance and be exempt from the auto-enrollment provisions in the bill. The second amendment is a more technical change that would allow EBMUD to continue to coordinate with a third party to provide crisis assistance. This would allow EBMUD to contract with nonprofits for crisis assistance through our existing Water Lifeline program. With that complex bill, I'm happy to answer questions that you may have.
An understatement.
Yes.
And did I miss an option for us to pull up a slide presentation?
No, it's all in the
Something
write-up.
this extensive should be double covered. I mean, there should be a serious slide
Yeah.
presentation, so we don't, I mean, your voice is lovely, but we'd like to be able to follow
Sure. Okay.
something other than the written word. Any questions, you guys? Luz?
So I may have missed it, but I'm wondering if there are multiple programs out there that qualify individuals for public benefits, like whether it's SNAP or WIC or things like that.
Yes.
And did I read correctly that it's the PG&E Care Program folks whose data would be shared with us? Because I'm wondering if there's other public benefit programs that we would that it might be easier to get data from.
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Director Gomez. So in the bill, there's sort of 3 different methods for a new customer to be auto-enrolled. One of those is specified in the bill, it's data sharing from PG&E, which would be their affordability programs. The other way is if a customer presents a benefit award letter from one of those programs you just talked about, so they could present that to EBMUD and then be auto-enrolled in the program. So that would signify that they are low income and have been vetted through that method.
Okay. Answers my question, thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so we've been watching the progress of this since, I believe, the year I got elected, the first bill was passed, and there was a study bill, and then kind of COVID happened, and, and et cetera. And, due to, well, in part due to Prop 218, but also because, PG&E has had a rate assistance program for, I don't know, I don't remember not being an adult and there not being, a lifeline rate. We've obviously had our program for many, many years, and I really appreciate the the situation where we find ourselves in, where we have a much more generous program than what this bill is proposing. And while I actually would not be opposed to considering reducing our assistance to be able to cover more people, I do appreciate that the bill contemplates, allows, or as I understand it, the sponsors are, ready to, or move an amendment that would allow us to apply this to our arrears program, which covers a big basket of the folks that would be covered by this 20%. I'm guessing that people that are behind in their bills, in addition to being CAP customers, a lot of them are low income and for whatever reason have not enrolled in the CAP program themselves. And it is complicated, no doubt, but I think it's, we are one of the few water utilities in the state of California to have a program that supports customers, and I think it's high time that the legislature, finds a way to manage their way around Prop 218, and I think this is a good solution to that. It's only a first step, really, though. It doesn't cover the smallest water systems, and it doesn't. It's a first step. I see the many water utilities that have, or folks that have lined up opposing or lining up opposing the bill. I know they're not on the list so far, but now I think there has been official opposition filed on the bill from Aqua and others. I think it's important for us to say this is something that we have committed ourselves to for decades, and we applaud this as a first step and want to support if it's amended to address the concerns that we have. So I'm completely comfortable forwarding a motion to support the bill if amended. And I do agree with Lisa that a PowerPoint on something complicated like this would be helpful. But I don't want to let that stand in the way of supporting a bill that I know you guys have been working really hard on with the sponsors to get to a position of support. Debbie especially.
Andy, but first Margarita, is that a formal?
Yes, that's a motion to support the bill if amended.
Andy, and then Dale?
And I'll second and we'll speak to the motion.
You'll go after Andy.
So in terms, just a brief comment on absorbing information of a complex nature. I wouldn't mind a PowerPoint, but it wouldn't be a substitute for a memo here. There's a lot going on. And the scenarios required me to reread the description of scenarios a couple times, and just speaking for myself, I think a chart of key outcomes of each scenario would have helped me interpret it without having to reread it a couple times just for future reference. But it's frustrating to look at the scenarios and see that there is really only one that I find that is satisfying. That's scenario 4, because the other scenarios are either scenario 1, which is potentially infeasible, and scenarios 2 and 3, which would box us into a lower benefit level for our existing CAP customers. So, I'm not completely intrinsically opposed to modifying the benefit level, but we haven't considered it, and that's something I would take very seriously and would want to talk with stakeholders and advocates in our local community. We have a program that's working for people, and to modify that through a separated statewide process is a big deal. So that's my only reservation about putting our stamp of support if amended on this, because I am concerned that state law could implement a program that would force us to lower benefits to low-income customers. That we need to really clearly explain to the legislature. And I'm very confident that Senator Durazo's office will carry that message, that we are not, our support is if amended, and I would like that to come with the understanding that, unless we really complete that engagement and have a balanced outcome, that we are not interested in reducing benefits to existing, reducing the parameters of our program, because we have not had the opportunity to study that. But that said, I mean, there's so much to be gained by this bill, both mostly for the statewide perspective, but I think also for us, what Director Young spoke to on arrears is a very big frustration with our current program. The inability to be able to address customers with a large amount of arrears, and having some options to be able to deal with that, the ability to have a voluntary contribution. Frankly, not sure that we need this bill to be able to do that, but it is very, I think it is helpful to have a bill that outlines what the process is. I think it improves the legitimacy of doing that, and the customer acceptance of doing that if there's a statewide approach. So I think it's helpful to have it, although if the bill's opposition, causes the bill to implode, maybe we should actually examine, can we do it without the legislation, because it's a really intriguing concept. But I don't know what other constraints the MUD Act has that would apply here. So I think that those are my top concerns. There still is a fair amount to process, but I'm interested in preserving the flexibility to be able to go above and beyond support for customers who need affordability assistance. That the state isn't limiting our ability to use that money beneficially. And that it could apply to arrears, it could apply to having different levels of benefit for different income thresholds that are not strictly specified, because those, we have different parameters for what affordability means in our region compared to other regions, and so having the ability to make those decisions locally, even if there's a state floor, I think we need to be able to serve customers who are in those greater degrees of need if we find that's what we need locally. So those are some comments that I hope can be incorporated into our understanding of the amendments, but I do think that the themes of these two amendments that you've already specified are right on track too. Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback.
Bill?
Yes, I wanted just to join my colleagues in their comments. And what I wanted to emphasize is the fact that we have a program for over 13 years that really works and assists already. this is a catch-up on the part of the state. It had to come at some point in time. And in your discussions, if we're going to support it, ought to be some language that acknowledges our contribution to the program from a district standpoint, and that we already meet most of this criteria. I think it's in the unfunded area of high bills, arrearages that needs to be addressed. We could use money from the state to do that and continue with our program. It wouldn't make any difference. So I'm saying they should acknowledge where we are and give us support on the areas that we're having trouble with, which is high arrearages. I wanted to make sure we got that in. And I think the other things have been addressed by Director Young and Katz.
Thank you.
You know, formulation and giving it to us so we don't have to read this in a jumbled fashion. It's a little difficult to work our way through.
All right, yeah.
Just a couple things. So so I understand, this basically bypasses 218 because it's voluntary. Is that right?
I think the author and the sponsor's intent is to enact a voluntary contribution that would appear on non-low-income ratepayer bills. People could opt out of that if they choose to do that. And so then, because it would be a local funding mechanism with an option, then it's no longer
A 218 rate increase, right?
that is their stated intent.
Yeah, okay. And then, how does the voluntary nature actually, how might it actually work? So it sounds like you have to tell them at least 3 months ahead of time, but yeah, I'll let you explain.
Yeah, so there's a section in the bill text that describes how that voluntary contribution would work. It is, the bill does prescribe that 3 months before a water system is going to potentially put a voluntary contribution on ratepayer bills, that notice is given to the customer. The bill does defer to the local water systems to figure out, how that's going to be accomplished. So we have some wiggle room there to figure out the best way to notice our customers, make sure they know what's happening. And then once that notice is given, then the contributions could start per the timelines in the bill, right? And then from there, customers would be able to opt out or seek refunds, and those methods are prescribed in the bill as well. There's more complicated language in the bill I'm happy to go through, but that's sort of the structure of how that would work.
But it's not an opt-in, it's only an opt-out. So basically, if you don't see the notice or don't pay any attention, all of a sudden, and then there's presumably, or there has to be a line on the bill that says this is a voluntary
Yeah, so
contribution.
it would be required to show up on the bill, and then the water system would have to describe what that benefit is for,
Yeah,
right? It's to
so
fund
that-
low-income rate assistance.
When somebody gets a bill, they might see that and say, oh, wait, voluntary, I didn't volunteer to do
Right.
this, and, check the box or whatever to get off of it.
Yeah.
And is it done as a percentage or a flat amount, or is that left up to us?
Yeah, so that's a complicated part of the bill. So in general, it's a 20% bill discount, and then the language in the bill starts getting into the different ways that water systems charge, whether it's volumetric or the total drinking water charges. So that particular language in the bill is pretty flexible, and it's meant to be flexible so that systems with existing programs don't get out of alignment with what the bill is trying to do. So, but it is very complicated how that.
But it gives flexibility for the water company
Yeah.
to
Yes.
say, hey, everybody's gonna get a $5 charge here, or everybody's gonna get a 5% charge, or.
Yes, so the water system is the one that comes up with the funding amount level that would need to be reached by the voluntary contribution. There's some parameters that are specified in the bill that the water system should assume 60% of the eligible the non-low-income ratepayers would essentially want to provide assistance like this, and then that threshold could be changed after a year if the revenue doesn't materialize because people opt out or request refunds.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree with comments that we've had before. This is, I mean, we're not entirely happy with what we have. We're proud of what we have. There's challenges, clearly, but there's also a lot of places around the state where there isn't a low-income assistance program for water. And so the requirement for state law to step in and take care of this issue is an important one, and it's not an easy one. And so I'm certainly willing to go along with this as well.
Great, thank you.
All right, if there's nothing further, I'm inclined to support this, but, you know, it's unfortunate that, you know, you need a college degree to understand exactly what's being proposed. And I think that is doing our customers a disservice. And I'm hoping that's something that we can work on.
Well, hopefully we can make it simpler to
Yeah.
understand in some explanatory way to them.
This is just
Yeah.
over most people's heads. So anyway,
Well,
that's my comment.
And maybe our customers will contribute enough that we can actually add more people to our customer assistance program.
Oh, only until they go, I didn't mean that.
Well, no. I mean, after a time, I mean, right now, we put it towards arrearages, and then,
Yeah, it's not,
at-
it's,
you know,
like
at
I
the
said,
point.
Marguerite, our customers deserve to actually understand what they are agreeing or not agreeing to. So, all right, there's nothing further. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, it's unanimous, Clifford.
Thank you, and I just want to just acknowledge quickly before Kathy gets up, I mean, Debbie has put a lot of effort to put into this very, very complicated bill. She has worked with the author's office and staff. I've met with them one time. They are very complimentary of our program, and they worked with us very closely to make sure that nothing they did would hurt our program. So, but it was not easy, and I just want to say, just recognize that for Debbie.
No, Debbie, you're wonderful. So thank you. This was not about you. It's about the program. So going forward, and never mind, I won't beat a dead horse.
And it's being heard right now in committee, I believe.
Correct.
And the general consensus that it can pass, or is there?
It'll pass. Yeah, I believe so. Okay.
Good afternoon, Kathy.
Good afternoon, President McIntosh and members of the board. I want to second what Clifford has said about Debbie. She's done an outstanding job. And I also appreciate the feedback from the board about complicated bills like this and needing some more tools to better understand and follow. So we'll take that into consideration the next time we have a complex bill like this one. So I'm here to present the second item. Sorry, I'm getting feedback. So this is AB 460. This is one of the water rights bills by Assembly Member Rebecca Bauer-Cahan. Staff, we are recommending to move from our oppose unless amended position to a support position for the bill. The bill was significantly amended on June 12th, and it is now more focused on enforcement, and it does that by increasing certain civil and administrative penalties that the State Water Board may impose when there is a violation of a water right or a regulation or so forth. The bill is really now intended to deter unlawful behavior under California's water rights system. So the amendments deleted the provision that had granted the State Water Board or proposed to grant the State Water Board new broad interim relief powers, some of which we opposed. So that whole section came out of the bill, and now the bill does essentially three things. It allows the State Water Board to adjust for inflation by January 1 each year, starting in 2025, the amounts of the civil administrative liabilities or penalties they impose in certain water right actions, and then it also increases the civil penalties from $1,000 to $2,500 for persons or entities that violate certain cease and desist orders that are issued by the State Water Board. And it increases the civil penalties from $500 to $1,000 for each day a person or an entity violates a term or a condition of a permit, license, certification, or registration, an order or regulation, or a reporting requirement, which are new requirements for the diversion of floodwaters for groundwater recharge. And then lastly, the bill, this is sort of a new provision in law. It provides that if a person or an entity that violates a curtailment order that is issued by the state board, they may be liable for $10,000 for each day the violation occurs, which is a pretty stiff penalty, and $2,500 for each acre-foot of water diverted in violation of a curtailment order. And this was in response to a situation in Northern California where curtailment orders had been issued. And those diverters were actually in violation of the order, and they continued to divert because they knew that the cost of the penalty was lower compared to the cost of not diverting water. So they made an economic decision and were in violation, and this is meant to deter that kind of behavior. So our recommendation is to move to support with these amendments.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
My comment is that the support and the opposition list is quite divergent. And seems like, just from the list of water districts and everything, that we're gonna be alone.
Director Lenny, let me just correct, that is the list that was available when the bill was last heard. The bill's being heard today, that list has been updated. So more agencies are moving over into the support column.
And it even happened long enough ago that we have an article in the Aqua publication that we received in our regular mail today that acknowledges some of these developments.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Not that I'm uncomfortable with being.
Well, we're the only agency right now on 1255. Although I think San Francisco and a couple others are coming on board, but.
So this is just to schedule a special meeting,
No,
or
No, this is
do you need
support.
us to?
this is AB 460.
AB 460 to move to a support position on the bill. So we can register, we're no longer, we lifted our oppose unless amended position and we were neutral on the bill. Now we
Do we
want to
have a
go to
motion?
support.
I'll move.
Second, oh,
All right, who's gonna take the second?
I don't care. Andy can have it.
All right, so we have a motion by Director Lenny, a second by Director Katz. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, unanimous, thank you.
Okay, and I just have a couple of quick updates and sort of following in line with water rights legislation. I have an update on the other bill, which was AB 1337, which was by Assemblymember Wicks. And that bill sought to authorize the State Water Board to curtail any water diversions regardless of the basis of right, meaning that they could curtail senior water right holders when water is not available under the diverter's priority of right. And it also expanded instances in which basically unauthorized diversions would be considered a trespass. Assemblymember Wicks decided to pull the bill this year. I don't know whether she intends to introduce it next year. She decided to pull the plug because we were told by her staff that they have a do no harm standard when it comes to legislation. And they didn't feel they would be able to get to a place with EBMUD and the broader water community to ensure that they could meet that standard. There were a new set of amendments that were brought forward a week and a half before the deadline that they needed to amend the bill for it to be heard. And those amendments that came in actually were going in the wrong direction. And so she decided at this time just to pull the plug on it. So that's the update on the other bill.
If I can ask, there was some background noise when you described the standard applied by the Assembly Member's office.
It's a do no harm standard,
thank you.
essentially. So I think they felt at the time, we had been meeting with the legislative director as well as the sponsors. We had meetings with them and some of the representatives of the water community, and we couldn't get there in the short amount of time that was available. And then finally, I have some good news to share. So last week, the California Supreme Court issued a peremptory writ of mandate directing the Secretary of State to refrain from placing the Taxpayer Protection Act, I'm not snapping, yes, it's the misnomer, but the Taxpayer Protection Act on the November general election ballot. So the court unanimously agreed with the petitioners, both the governor and the legislature, that the act is invalid. And the reason it's invalid is it attempts to make a substantial revision to the California Constitution that would alter basic government function because it was weighing in and affecting how, fees and things and such were assessed. So according to the decision, basically it said the electorate is permitted to amend the Constitution. So it's the distinction between a revision and an amendment. They can amend the Constitution through the initiative process, but substantial revisions to the Constitution must follow a separate procedure, and that requires the legislature to place a question on the ballot whether to call a constitutional convention. And so the court made a unanimous decision that this was a substantial revision, so asked that it be pulled. So that completes my update, and I'm happy to take any questions.
What are they gonna spend their $40 million on?
I don't know. So,
I find it particularly funny that you call it the Taxpayer Protection Act. I did,
yes.
I ran 2 campaigns against similar bills like this, and we called it the Polluter Protection Act. So a certain amount of irony there.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very
so
much.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Debbie. Next, Derek will review the next 2 items on Assembly Bill 408, authority for the 2024 general election.
Good afternoon, President McIntosh and members of the board. I'll let the presentation get queued up here. And my presentation this afternoon relates to items 14 and 15 on this afternoon's agenda. And it's on, the board is being asked to exercise its authority under Assembly Bill 408, which is the bill that authorizes the board to appoint a candidate to office in the event that no candidate or one candidate runs for an open ward seat in a district election. And so this afternoon, and if we can go to the next slide. I'm just going to give a brief background on AB 408. I'll discuss the options that AB 408 provides the board for both appointment and holding the election. I'll discuss the very tight timeline in which those options have to be exercised. And because of that tight timeline, we're coming to the board today with a suggested appointment process for pre-approval to be adopted between the 83rd and 76th day before the election. And then I'll just review the recommended actions under items 14 and 15. Next slide, please. So AB 408 was actually sponsored by EBMUD in 2013 after we'd held years of elections for which there was really only one candidate for office. And the idea was to provide the district with the same authority held by other public entities and allow the district to essentially save costs of an election where there's no opposition to the sole candidate. In 2022, the cost for the election in 2 wards was approximately $772,000. So, AB 408 is codified in the MUD Act at Public Utilities Code Section 11852.5. And as I'll discuss, it provides the board with a very short window to exercise its authority under AB 408. And that window is between the 83rd and the 76th day before the election. So after I discuss the board's options under AB 408, I'll show what that window looks like in relation to our regular board meeting scheduled in August. Next slide, please. So under AB 408, at a board meeting between the 83rd and 76th day before the election, the board has several options. If there's only one candidate for a ward, the board may appoint the candidate, or the board may appoint a person if there are no candidates, recognizing that it may be very difficult to decide who to appoint in a single meeting. It allows the board to adopt a process to appoint a person at that meeting between the 83rd and 76th day before the election, and then to follow that process and make the actual appointment before the election date. or the board may choose to hold the election regardless. Next slide, please. Now, in August, we have a regular board meeting on August 18th and another regular board meeting on August 27th. And the appointment process needs to be, the options need to be exercised between 83 and 76 days before the election. The 83rd day before the election is August 15th, and that's the date upon which the county certifies any candidate filings. Notification to the counties of the district's option under AB 408 must take place 76 days before the election, which is August 21st. And because those two dates fall between our regular board meetings, we'll be asking the board to set a special meeting in order to exercise those options. And of course, this year, the general election is on November 5th.
So the last date, Derek, to actually file for the seat is August?
Is August 15th.
15th.
Yes.
Okay.
Next slide, please. So I've discussed that the appointment options, if the board doesn't want to hold an election, it may immediately appoint a candidate at that special district. So in theory, someone could simply stand up and say, I'd like to be a board member for whatever ward, and you can hold a discussion and appoint that person. More practical is probably an appointment process, and we actually have utilized an appointment process in the recent past for the seat for Ward 2. And so we have put together a resolution that essentially mirrors that process for pre-approval today. And so the idea is that today the board would pre-approve the process, and then at the meeting, the special meeting in August would adopt that process, should it want to go through that process and appoint a candidate.
A question though, that would be only in the event that that nobody files.
Correct, yes, this process may only be
If
utilized.
there's somebody that's filed, we
Yeah.
can't just say,
You're
sorry, we
appointed.
don't like you, we're gonna appoint somebody else.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes. If a sole person is filed, your option, you do have options. You may either appoint that sole candidate or hold the election.
And I think the timeline is slightly different. I think the August 15th is when we would get notification from the registrar of voters of the respective
Certification.
county, that for a ward where the deadline has been extended due to an incumbent not filing for reelection, then we would get notification that they're, who is filed or not. I think for the regular filing deadline would be Friday the 9th. But the extension goes to August 14th, and then we would.
Yes, I
start our
see what you say.
business
I
the
believe
next-
you're correct. I believe August, the 14th date it encompasses the extension date, yes.
But
So
we
that's
won't be
the
able to-
outside date.
Yeah, at 5 PM, but your office and the secretary's office need to begin a response when we get notified sometime on the 15th. Hopefully that's prompt, yeah.
But does that mean, I'm sorry, does that, so if one of us who's up it files or does not file, there's an automatic extension. If one of us files and there is no one else that files, this is the typical scenario that we've had, then that there's no extension of time at that point. So do we actually have two deadlines potentially to meet? The deadline where an incumbent hasn't filed, and so there's been an extension, and also a potential for an incumbent to have filed, and there not to be any other candidates, where we also can make an appointment. So I think that means there's two deadlines to meet that are different from unless they're both encompassed by the date you're setting.
So the August
Am I
15th
making
date is
sense?
the outside for the extension timeline. My understanding is that the counties can accept write-ins after the 76th day before the election.
No, we can appoint somebody. We can have, several of us have benefited from this provision, that if there is no one else that files and you're an incumbent, the board can appoint you to the seat, and there is no election.
Correct. That's the AB 408 process.
Right. I'm not, I guess my question, what I'm wondering is whether we actually potentially have two separate decisions to make by different times. One in the case of an incumbent who doesn't face a challenger, and the second in the case of a seat where the incumbent does not file and an extension is granted, and then we have to decide what to do, what if there's only one person filing. Am
It's
I?
still within the same window.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to
Either
understand.
decision is still between the 76th and 83rd day before the election.
That is correct.
Okay, that's what I was, that's all I was trying to clarify.
Yeah, I think what's intriguing, in the interest of avoid it, the special meeting is not, so burdensome that we couldn't do it if it were, just no other way. But I think it is intriguing to explore, to ask staff to explore, if there is no unopposed contest for a seat that's being departed by an incumbent, that's causing the automatic extension to August 14th. And the only applicable race where there's only one candidate is a case where it is an incumbent, where there is no extension granted. Would we be able to incorporate that into the August 13th agenda? Is there a way to have noticing provided in the agenda that's posted on August 9th, not be prejudging the situation, but to explain the variety of scenarios, and then to have supplemental material prepared on Monday, August 12th, after we identify what the registrar has found, and then take action potentially without needing a special meeting. That may or may not happen, but it might save the board and the staff a special meeting. So that's a scenario to suggest. I don't know if that's feasible or not, but.
So AB 408 provides that the county election officials has until the 83rd day, or on the 83rd day, certifies whether or not one candidate or no candidate has filed to the Secretary of District, to the Secretary of the District. So it doesn't authorize an earlier appointment process because it gives the county election officials until the 83rd day before the election to make that certification process.
I see. Okay. All right. Well, that is, it's a very, very, they built in the 5-day extension even for races where it doesn't apply, it sounds. Okay. Thank you.
In lieu of scheduling a special meeting in August, is there ever a scenario where we could simply move one of our regularly scheduled meetings to the subsequent week so that we don't incur like a special extra meeting, but instead move one of our regular meetings? I don't know if that's doable or not. Just throwing it out there as a possibility.
Under the Brown Act, you could, basically you would cancel your regular meeting and then hold it a week later as a special meeting. Same agenda, same topics to be covered. So that is a possibility.
Okay, thank you.
And I would be open to doing that for August 20th. That would be favorable to me, but there's a lot of, I would want the general manager to have the opportunity to consult staff before doing that.
We don't have to choose
I look
it.
at it, I mean, it's a lot to move, and you think about the preparation, you're pretty much basically preparing 2 board meetings that same week, because there's only 1 week apart for all the mailings. It'd be very challenging, I think, to get everything together in time.
It would also be our first meeting since the first meeting in July.
Yeah.
There was a period where we canceled the 4th Tuesday meeting in August, but we moved our vacation schedule to do that for the July meeting.
And as I recall, when we were still doing that, we still ended up with a special board meeting to do this. So it didn't actually have an impact on the vacations.
It didn't have an impact on the need to have a special meeting. It's just part of the context, yeah.
Marguerite had to say something about that since moving the date was her
I
idea.
think our staff appreciates that our vacation schedule is now in July, since schools begin at the beginning of August these days. That's all I'm saying.
That's all you're saying. All right, any further questions, thoughts, comments?
So, and then, again, so this is the appointment process that is set forth in detail in the resolution that was provided to you. Again, it follows the process that we utilized for Ward 2. We would be, an ad hoc committee would be appointed at the special meeting. And of course, the purpose of the ad hoc committee is to review applications, weigh in on certain things like interview questions, if there's going to be interviews, and to generally guide the process. If we receive a large number of applications, the ad hoc committee would act as a screening to determine who goes forward to an actual interview. A notice of vacancy would be posted at each ward. Interested candidates would be provided with information packets and would send in applications to the secretary of the district, who would conduct an initial screening to make sure that each candidate, each applicant was qualified to hold a board seat in that ward. The ad hoc committee would conduct an initial review of applications. And then the board would conduct a public interview of candidates recommended for interview by the ad hoc committee. For the Ward 2 seat, all of the applicants were recommended for interview. And then the board would appoint a candidate, and that entire process needs to be completed by election day. Once appointed, the candidate would serve exactly as if elected to office. So for most candidates, that would be their service would start January 1st, 2025, and not immediately. It's a little different for a person who runs for election in an award seat to which an appointment has been made, in this case, Ward 2. And there's a bit of a gap in the MUD Act, because in that case, that person begins to serve upon certification of the election results by the secretary of the district. And there's a bit of a unclarity in the law of how do you certify the results where there hasn't been an election, but we'll work that out, so.
So, Derek, does that person, typically when an appointment is made, that person then needs to stand for election at the next regularly scheduled, so would they be up 2 years later?
Yes, so a person elected to fill a seat to which an appointment has been made serves out the remainder of the term of the office for which the appointment was made.
Right, but no, if we do this appointment process and we appoint somebody who begins serving on January 1st.
They would serve a full 4-year term.
Oh, they don't have to stand,
No,
okay.
no, that's only that only applies to the vacancy process where you're filling, the appointment process where you're filling a vacancy.
But,
So Director Gomez, to
but
use
Director Coleman's seat still had 2 more years on the clock.
Yes, but regardless, let's say the Director Gomez, for instance, runs opposed and someone else wins election, they can only serve, even though elected to office, can only serve for the remainder of Director Coleman's term.
Right.
Not the 4 years.
Not for 4 years.
Yeah, no,
And anyone that you appoint, so if Director Gomez runs unopposed and you appoint her, she also can only serve for the remainder of Director Coleman's prior term. And that's that's not in AB 408, that's in the vacancy provisions of the MUD Act, the vacancy appointment provisions.
Andy?
I think it's excellent that you've identified this opportunity for streamlining our succession process, and so that's good. We haven't done this before, but I think you've outlined a really reasonable process that will help avoid a vacancy on the board come January 1st of next year, where we would have that vacancy in effect for a period that we could have a more seamless transition. I think there's one reservation I have, and I want to make sure that we have some discretion once we understand what the filing context is, and that could be that it may be that recruitment for whatever is happening outside just came short, and that somebody comes out of the woodwork just a month or two later. It may also, and in that's a scenario where I think this process makes a lot of sense, where, the residual vacancy means that somebody else shows interest and that, that the appointment process, spurs that interest and that's beneficial for public service. But what I'm concerned about is it may be that there are excellent candidates who simply are on the ballot for other offices, and that the outcome of the election itself may, or there may be people who are serving in other offices, and then so therefore the outcome of the election itself could affect who would be qualified candidates for appointment. So I wonder, so that's a scenario where the timing of an appointment process could make a material difference in whether it's desirable to do that before the election or very shortly after the election. So I'm wondering, do we have to, if we resolve to have this appointment process, do we retain discretion to pause it if those kinds of conditions arise?
So you have the discretion at the special meeting between the 83rd and 76th day before the election to simply hold the election. After that 76th day, if you've decided to undergo the appointment process, no write-in candidates may be accepted. So once you've notified by the 76th day before the election, once you've notified the counties that an appointment has been made or that you've adopted the process, the counties may not accept any write-in candidates.
I appreciate you raising it. So we're kind of and I don't mean to say at risk, because there have been some excellent write-in candidates serving in public office, like our neighboring Congressmember McNerney, but that individual still stood for a runoff election. Where all members of the electorate could see that name and have some fair notice of who's getting elected. But I guess what I'm hearing is if we don't do this process, then whoever gets the most votes in a write-in election becomes a director.
That is correct, yes.
And that does sound like it's an important ability of the electorate to be able to have a write-in opportunity, but it is really challenging for the electorate to get to meet and greet the candidates in a write-in. So this is more desirable than a write-in, and I stand corrected on my considerations. So thank you for confirming that. Yeah.
All right.
Next slide, please. So under item 14 today, the board is being asked to schedule a special meeting of the Board of Directors in August 2024 to allow the board to exercise your AB 48 authority. And also under item 15 to adopt a resolution that essentially pre-approves an appointment process to be adopted at that special meeting.
Do we have a motion?
And I would recommend just voting on each, since they are separately numbered board items.
So for item 14.
So I will move item 14 as recommended for the special meeting. Do we have to set a date right now?
I think that, no, Risha can work that out.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Voice vote required. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Item 15, Derek?
Yes, so item 15 is to adopt a resolution to approve the appointment process to be used by the board during any general election in the event there's no candidate for an open ward seat. So this process will be used not only for this election, but it will remain in our files for adoption in the future.
Can I just one change? When it talks about the interview length for the candidates listed as 15 minutes, I just wanted to put an interview length will be predetermined by the ad hoc committee. Give the ad hoc committee some flexibility as opposed to just, 15-minute window.
We can make that change in the final resolution to be signed.
Okay, thank you. And I just have one quick request that it be clear in whatever documents we put out there when the starting date would be for whoever gets appointed.
clarity.
Yeah, I would, echoing April's thing, I would just exclude those last two bullets. Just, you don't even need to put anything in there, I don't think, in terms of the time and clarifying questions thing.
Derek?
Yes, I'll make that change to the resolution to be signed by the president.
All right, then, do we have a motion and a second?
So moved. With the amendments as expressed by Director Young.
Okay, I heard Andy
I'll
first.
second it.
All right, so Andy, first, Lou second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right,
Thank you, Derek. We just have one more item, and it's our communications update. We have Kelly Zito, our Director of Public Affairs, to share our accomplishments for fiscal year '24 and our plans for fiscal year '25.
No, Janetta, is it on now? Yeah, okay, great, all right, thank you, Clifford. Good afternoon, President McIntosh, members of the board. As Clifford mentioned, I'm here to provide a little bit of an overview of our accomplishments on the communications and outreach front in FY '24, as well as provide a little bit of an update or a preview of our plans for 2025. I'm gonna take off my badge because it's making noise. Let's see. So here's the agenda. This does not indicate quite how many slides I have, because I have quite a number, but I will try to move quickly through this since I know that I'm the last presentation standing between the board meeting and our celebration of Jimmy here. So, one note, although the presentation focuses a lot on the accomplishments of the public affairs team specifically, this work is really about raising awareness of all of our work here at the district. So it's really shining a light on just the amazing day-to-day work of all the groups here across the district. Okay. So, the Public Affairs Office serves as the voice of the district. Our broader aim, though, is to really engage and build trust with our diverse and dynamic community in a way that supports the district's mission and highlights EBMUD as a critical community partner and protector of public health and the environment. Our two main goals overall are raising awareness of EBMUD as that community partner, and also trying to unify and streamline communications across the district so we're all kind of singing from the same song sheet. Let's see. Here's an overview, by no means exhaustive, but shows the basic responsibilities of our group here in public affairs. And so first off, I'm going to touch on news media, social media, and digital and print publications. So this was a really big year for us for media outreach. We ended up participating in 130 interviews, which is kind of an amazing amount, given that it was not a drought year this year. Andrea, you might have seen her out there on TV quite a bit. And we did really hone in on some more proactive media events. So the Arinda photovoltaic project, which went really well. And then, other innovation topics like the in-conduit microturbine ended up having a lot of coverage, in fact, around the world, because it was picked up by trade publications. And then, that reach, it can go a lot farther than you think it can. So, those 2,000 mentions reached, it's kind of a staggering number here, 738 million different people. They could be the same people reading multiple articles. But if you had to pay for that publicity value, it would have been about $1.3 million in advertising. So just, again, another measure here. Social media. So again, this was another year of growth for us. We reached that 10,000 followers mark on LinkedIn, which is really important because that is a major tool for how we reach out for job advertisements, recruiting, careers. And then, Instagram, which we technically launched back in FY '23, We had our first really viral video from that. It's this video on how to read your meter. Something just, straightforward and fairly basic, but got, a ton of views. So that's, again, just speaks to how we're trying to use some more of these channels in kind of new and different ways. You can hear, oh, yes, sure.
What is Channels X?
Oh, X is what used to be, X used to be Twitter.
I have no clue.
Oh, it used to be Twitter.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And then
right.
Elon Musk changed the name to X. Yes.
All
We
right,
had to
I'm
make all that
aging
change on the
myself.
website. It's hard to keep up sometimes. All right, and then on digital and print publications, we're continuing to implement our kind of digital first strategy that we adopted with our strategic communications plan. So, trying to do more products, create more products and experiences that are, online, available on your phone. We did a number of legacy projects, or video projects, including legacy interviews with some former board members and general managers. And then we did some partner videos as well with In-Pipe Energy. That was the in conduit turbines. This year, we also finally launched our digital media library. And so this is kind of it's an online repository of all of our historical and current photos. So, they were kind of, a little bit scattered around in different places. And so now we kind of have this clearinghouse of all this information so that staff can use these photos and other assets in their presentations, et cetera. So also we updated the interpretive signs out at Lafayette, which is a big improvement and, a great spot to do that since we do get 1 million visitors a year there. So on our centennial, a lot of the activities concluded in FY 2023, but we do still have some items happening this year. We did release our 20-minute film, A Lifeline for 100 Years. For some of our work around the centennial this year, we received a CAPIO Award of Distinction. That's the California Association of Public Information Officers. We had, 2 celebrations for our employees around the centennial at Lafayette and then in Sacramento. We've done some art shows. And then in FY25, we are planning to have the lobby display complete, and we'll be releasing an online historical flip book and also a new PowerPoint template design. So the 100, as much as we like it, will fade into the background and we'll move ahead with a new modern template. So internal communications, Splashes comes out every other week. It's been around for a while. It still has a decent open rate. It's around 60%, which is pretty high for an internal newsletter. It's a way for us to showcase, district news, focus on employees, spotlight innovation, and we're going to continue to lean into those themes in FY25. Do a little bit more behind the scenes, inner workings of the district, profile job groups that might not get as much focus sometimes in other areas. So looking ahead on the public information side, as I mentioned, we're continuing to invest in digital content. We're going to finish out our centennial projects. And then late this summer, early this fall, we're going to be doing an external campaign, a digital campaign highlighting not only our diverse workforce and the kind of breadth of careers at the district, but also try to focus in a little bit on those hard to fill positions as well. All right, Clifford's not giving me the hook yet, so. All right, so on this slide, so this is about our kind of local government and community outreach. And so I think here the numbers really kind of speak for themselves. We were out and about in the community, in a bunch of different areas in a bunch of different ways. And I think the main takeaway is that, we're always looking to, better engage with our local government partners, community partners, membership agencies, et cetera, to get out the word about our great work and share information about jobs, CAP, CEP, and others. So capital projects, we have a few of those going on. I think, I don't know, there's somewhere around 60 something, I think, number of capital projects that are going on at any given time, maybe more. It's gone, knock on wood, things have gone really well. We have Arinda going, of course, the Briones Offal is going. And, that's one where, a couple of years ago, there was some negative reaction from the community. This time around, we've gotten really positive feedback on that project, and so one of the things that we'll be doing in FY25 is rolling out our new construction sign. So here's an example here on this slide with a QR code. It's also translated into Spanish and Chinese for people who are looking for more information. And we're hoping this kind of cleaner design is a little bit more.
I may have dismissed that. Did you just say that we've been getting positive feedback about the Orinda Off-Hall?
Yes. Mona is giving me a thumbs up.
Can you send me the positive impact, positive feedback when
Sure.
we get it, just so that I have it memorialized? Thank you.
Absolutely. We can make a T-shirt for you if you'd like. Okay. So in terms of board support, I mean, I want to thank you all for your availability and flexibility and support in going out into the community and getting the word out about all the work that the district is doing. We've done a number of different kind of engagements with you all, from introductions at various meetings to presentations, and of course setting up meetings and things with local elected officials as well. In addition to, of course, the less fun part about notifying you of main breaks and outages and constituent concerns. Sponsorships. So we covered this a little bit in the mid-cycle update, and so we sponsor more than 170 different entities and events throughout the course of the year. Participating in a number of festivals, including a bunch for the Water on Wheels. We're looking to increase that number of events that we participate in 2025. And basically through the course of a year, we're able to get in front of or engage with around 1.2 million people-ish through all these different events. And I will note that, we are looking at adding events, but one of the limiting factors is that, we do have to look at kind of like staffing those events, because most of them are on weekends and some are on holidays. So that's just something we're keeping an eye on. Looking ahead for community outreach, we are, trying to work on more of a local government outreach strategy so that we can kind of prioritize and be a little bit more systematic about how we do outreach to local governments. We continue to promote CAP and CEP, and we're also, always looking for better ways to notify the public about, upcoming projects and priorities in their area. And of course, we work very closely with Darius Group in the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion on various language efforts, from our website to other materials that we're translating. All right. This is the home stretch here. Education program. So this is kind of the newest part of our outreach, if you will. This is a program that we've really devoted a lot of time and energy into this past year. This was a program that had kind of languished for a while, and we've really revived it, bringing on a new staff position to assist in this area. And so you can see here some of the goals. Focusing again on K-12 for the short term, but again, we call it kind of K through gray. There's a lot of opportunities for educational enrichment for customers and people in the service area and beyond. And so, we're trying to look at this and approach it in a smart way, focus on what is unique to us and how we can get the word out about that, but also leveraging community partnerships of those who are already in this space doing this work, working with them because they often have a built-in audience. And I'll get into that a little bit more. So this year
Those kids holding.
This is, I asked if it was a snowball, but it's not.
It's frost from the ozone.
Okay.
The liquid oxygen.
Yeah.
And they did get to throw it around like snowballs, which they love. Very experiential.
I know, exactly.
Some measurement for the education program, because I know we've had education programs
Yeah.
for a long time, and
Yeah.
it always changes. Do you do skits or things like that?
Right. So this was a year of a lot of pilots. So we're kind of testing the waters on a lot of different things right now. We did do some focus groups with teachers and administrators about what are the things that are the most valuable to you. And so we got really helpful practical advice on like things that are challenges or that are needs. So things like, transportation is a barrier. So we're looking at, doing more funding for, Title I schools and other public schools around that. And then we're doing a lot of surveys post, these experiences, whether it's, a field trip or tour. And then we also have actually included some new KPIs in our strategic plan to measure the impact and how many students we're able to reach. So we have been trying to take a kind of a bit of a measurement-heavy approach to how we're doing it.
Yeah, I would think it'd be kind of challenging to figure out exactly, but.
Yeah, we're doing our best. And we will continue to try to make sure we can evaluate things appropriately. So field trips, we piloted a fifth grade field trip this year. This was great. This is where students went out and they actually tested water in a reservoir to kind of see what some of the qualities of the water were, and then the water after it went through the water treatment plant to then see the difference in the chemistry. And at fifth grade you think, okay, that seems advanced, but they got it. They were out there with the little workbooks, and the teachers thought it was really fantastic, and that's exactly the kind of thing that they said kids need to learn, is the hands-on stuff and not stuff that's kind of talking down to them, but treating them like mini scientists basically. That's true. All right, and so you can see here, we're going to expand the fifth grade field trips, and then we're working on different assembly approaches too, so that we can reach kind of a broader group of students through that mechanism. Transitioning beyond K-12, we're still offering our Water Wednesdays, the tour webinars on once a month on Wednesdays, and we're offering our water walks, which get out into the watershed or do tour different facilities. We're going to continue to do these in FY25, although we might look at pulling back somewhat on these in the sense that the Water Wednesdays were really popular during COVID because everyone was kind of online and looking for new content and information. But I think people have kind of pulled back from those a little bit, so we might streamline those and bring those down next year. And then let's see. I'll talk a little bit more about some of the partnerships that we're going to be doing, but we're looking at Lindsay Wildlife Museum to partner with them on some wildlife hikes, including some in Spanish as well. All right. Community Water Academy.
Two things on the field trips. What is the Zune Zune musical? So that's one.
Yes.
And two is the other, in addition to Lindsay Wildlife, Oakland has this Sailing into Science program that happens for fifth graders every week, all year. And I'm just wondering whether there's something that we could slot into that, which would be a piggybacking opportunity on a very popular program that I think, gosh, I don't know if almost every school in Oakland Unified goes through it or what, but it's very, very popular.
Oh, great, thank you. So I might need to ask Catherine to respond to this one, but Zune Zune is this group that goes around to different schools and does school assemblies, and it's usually kind of a musical kind of sing-along kind of performance, and they usually do songs in English and Spanish, and they're they focus on or they're focusing with us on kind of keeping a healthy watershed, the things that we need to do to prevent pollution, and so yeah, it's like a performance that happens at a weekly school assembly.
Okay. Nice.
Oops. Let's see. All right. Community Water Academy. I think you're all pretty familiar with this one. The one big change that was that we did this year was that we added a full day party and hatchery tour to the program, which was incredibly popular. And again, this is another item where we got really positive feedback from all the participants and how we structured it and the content and everything. So the next one is coming to a water utility near you in April of 2025. All right. So here's a little bit more about the educational partnerships that we're working on, and so a lot of these are kind of the greatest hits of the popular educational institutions in the East Bay. We're working on all kinds of different partnership levels with all these folks, and we're exploring also working a little bit more with the East Bay Regional Park District, but of course on doing some more watershed wildlife tours. All right. Upcountry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry. Go
Kelly.
ahead.
Back to the
This one?
last slide. So with partners, how are those selected? Are they selected because they're closest physically to the district? Or do you look for partners outside of the district, say Richmond, for instance? Because I don't see anything that's outside of, I guess, Oakland.
Well, so we have been trying to reach out to those that we know have kind of like a fairly already stood up educational program. And I think we've started with kind of like the biggest, some of the biggest names.
Sure.
But I think as we, move forward and create more of these partnerships, I think we'll expand that group, definitely. So if you have, getting that mic, if you have suggestions or ideas, please send them our way. All right, so Upcountry, we've also invested quite a bit in our educational work Upcountry. We started expanding the Salmon in the Classroom program in this past year, and we will be providing some transportation assistance to Title I schools. We have a great video too of some kids visiting the hatchery as well that we can share with you. It's really fabulous. Our new Upcountry car took that video, and it's really impressive. And so here's some things that we're planning later this summer. Fossil exhibit in partnership with the World of Wonder Science Museum in Lodi. So we are looking to do more educational partnering, of course, beyond the district as well. All right, so looking ahead for education, here are some items that we've got on our plate coming up. Creating some more media for educational and social media use. One of the things we heard from teachers was that they really crave something that's kind of an all-in-one kind of package in terms of STEAM. So creating like STEAM kits with water lessons for classrooms, not teaching the water cycle because that's very broad and not EBMUD specific, but more about where their water comes from, how we treat it, the careers here, et cetera. And then, again, as I mentioned, seeking out new partnership opportunities, museum exhibits, and other things. Let's see. Oh, so that's basically it. We continue to, want to improve and enhance our outreach and engagement and education. And, the bigger goal here, of course, is to really build trust and deepen our relationships in the community. And we're really trying to connect with people, in a thoughtful, intentional way, meeting them where they are, whether that's, at a festival, out in the watershed, in a classroom. We want people to know who we are, know what we're doing, and how we're supporting the community and protecting the environment. And so with that, I'll take any questions.
I just have to say, you guys have done a phenomenal job.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I mean, just exceptional job, and I know I thank you. And I thank you on behalf of the entire board for doing what you do. Any questions, thoughts, comments for Kelly?
No,
Okay.
Go ahead, Director.
I would join in the president's thanks to you and to the unit and what it's doing for the district. I get a chance to see many channels on TV. I get a chance to see many of the stream-ins that East Bay Mud comes out on top in. And television is just one iota. But you pick up the paper, all the things that we are doing are being transmitted out to the public. And we have a presence, and it's greatly appreciated. When I go to community meetings and whatnot, I always get an applause from people when I walk in because your sign is sitting outside the library or wherever public entity we are meeting in is advertising the good work that we're doing and the opportunities for the community to come in and participate. Very important. I don't know another agency that has that acumen or is doing that kind of thing. Most public agencies now get negative publicity, so keep working, keep letting people know Well, you appreciate it. You are.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to also thank you and the team. You guys have been absolutely incredible, having benefited personally from the Water Academy. Just huge kudos, Catherine and the entire team, for all you did to make it such a successful effort. And also, I appreciate the efforts to increase our language access. We are in a region where, as you well know, we have a lot of folks who have very limited English capacity. And so any efforts to reach out to them through our educational efforts or wherever we can, you know, having a translate button on websites and all of that, very much appreciated. So thank you guys.
Thank you.
Andy?
Yes, this is an excellent update, and I will just broadly commend all of it because I do think that there's meaningful progress in all of the different sub-areas that you've reported on. I just want to focus on some of the education program aspects because I have raised some of this in prior budget conversations and in communications with your office. So what I'd like to just share is, I'm really glad to see that this is getting that our efforts to reach classrooms, particularly fifth grade classrooms, is showing some early success. It really seems like a natural fit because, after all, fifth grade is when the curriculum standards at the state of California guide for classrooms to learn. For school children to learn the water cycle. So it's a natural time to pair that academic instruction with a meaningful field trip. And this was something that really is important because so many of our school children in our service area were not getting that opportunity through outdoor education. And it was just remaining a flat exercise in the classroom or at best a park around the corner. Which may be the best choice that a teacher had, but our watershed is a very excellent option and important to provide equity for access to being able to get an outdoor education experience, which I think can be more inspiring for STEM careers and possibly even careers at the district down the road. So that's the purpose for my enthusiasm and why I think the district should embrace this effort. It makes sense that we would start with Title I schools, and I'd like to keep thinking about how are we measuring participation for school districts in our service area as a whole, and that we look at other ways of looking at are we achieving that equity in our service area. So Title I is the obvious place to start, but I think we would still see gaps elsewhere. Not to say that if a teacher has a different vision for their classroom, that wouldn't be just as valid, but I think it's really the choice, and if we're seeing that classrooms in particular districts that are under-resourced are just not getting the opportunity to engage in a meaningful field trip, that's the barrier that still persists. So I like the vision of eliminating these transportation barriers, but let's continue to monitor and work with the districts and the superintendent's offices, both at the county and the district levels, to look at ways to measure, how do we reach beyond Title I schools. But first things first, and I really commend this. As this expands, which I hope it does, I also am interested in the value of the watershed experience compared to the treatment plant experience. I would value I think the outdoor education experience is better implemented at the watershed, but I'm interested in what teachers' experiences, reporting back are. And also what our capacity is. So, we may have adequate ranger capacity to facilitate expanded amounts of tours, but can we really accommodate an expansion of tours at the treatment plants? That would be important to consider. Right. So I look forward to hearing more about this going forward. I don't want to extend the meeting much longer than needed, but I do support continued work on this and expanded resources in our future budgets. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, and that's the end of my reports. And at your places is the Speakers Bureau.
All right, so that does move us to reports and director comments. Committee reports from sustainability this morning and then finance.
Great, so we had our one topic in the Sustainability Committee that was on integrated pest management and strategies, and had a pretty thorough briefing on that. We expect, basically the key thing is that we're looking for alternatives, as we have always, to anything that would harm either the environment or people, as a product, as a way to get rid of both weeds or things that are getting in the way of our practices out in the field. That can be long grass or things that are in places where we don't want it. We use 89% of our plant weeds control is done by grazing, and we're looking for alternatives to glyphosate. We were going to get an updated report with the full cost analysis in October at the Sustainability Committee meeting.
Thank you, Doug. Finance Administration, Andy.
Thank you, Madam President. We have, the Finance Committee met this morning and recommended to the board, after reviewing the May 2024 monthly investment transactions report and revisions to District Policy 7.03 for emergency preparedness and business continuity, modifying the minimum amount of standby officers expected for the board to appoint. Those were both approved as items 11 and 12 on our agenda today.
Thank you. That moves us to items for future consideration. Please submit items to the General Manager's office for future consideration. That moves us to director comments. Any director comments?
I have one that I'll share right now. Is that I was joined by Scott Hill, Clifford, and some mountain bike folks, and some Sierra Club and California Native Plant Society folks on Saturday to look at, or go on a little field trip to look at some trail segments that might align with our, with an interest in adding a few more miles of bike accessible trails in our watershed.
Thank you, Marguerite. Let's start here and move down. Doug.
Okay, I just wanted to mention that we had a liaison committee meeting, or I'm not sure if it's called liaison in this case, but for the Bayside project. Great presentation by the staff, great answers to all the questions. The key thing was that there were a lot of questions, a lot of good questions. I wasn't sure how much is on the minds of people. There wasn't a lot of people there, but there was a lot of good discussion, and I think a lot of good information that was put out there. And so something that we need to continue to do.
Andy?
No report.
Bill?
I just wanted to touch bases to say today we got limited time, and so we've got to move. We got to honor Jimmy, and I don't want to prolong the meeting. I do want to say that I've been invited to a number of community meetings. There's great concern in the community. All the positive things that we've talked about that we're doing over here in East EBMUD, but we're living in an environment that people are threatened and don't feel safe in. And these are the things that are highlighted at most of those meetings. And over Memorial and all the days that happened, losing Willie Mays and much of the comments and things that have come in, some positive and some negative, we need to be aware of where we are in time. And the focus of most of the community leaders that I've met with in different venues is dealing with where we are now as a people. And for me, a lot of that is in the people who have less wealth in the community, multicultural, different venues. NAACP is on the lead in some of those. And it's really looking into how we can unify our community to come together, because if the concern is great enough and the community comes together, then we'll lessen some of these negative things that are going on. I just want to emphasize that. And that's something that I've been dealing with extensively over this period. Gotten calls from Judy Pace Flood, the wife of Kurt Flood, who is with the Players Association of Baseball. And they're thinking about doing something out here too. That adds to Giants. Every venue you can think of are trying to get together to make an impact on the negative things that are going on. And I've been asked to help out in that area. So that's something I'll be individually working on. And now that my son is here, I'm pushing him to be the point, and I'll be behind him, giving him advice and giving the group advice. That's all the role I want to play, because I think our communities that we're vested in, East Bay MUD, is holding strong. And you're an example that I'm using, because the gentrification that has occurred, you are anti-gentrification. And I'm using you as an example, as I did with the President's Committee on Environmental Justice. East Bay MUD should be in that hall as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
I'm just going to say really quickly that I attended AWWA this year, and I learned a lot. It was really well worth the time, and I was so happy about the work that some presenters from East Bay MUD did, and I was able to sit on a couple of the sessions, but I thought it was really interesting walking through the floor of the exhibits. People say I'm from East Bay MUD, and then they start talking about how they engage with East Bay MUD. And so I actually learned a lot about what we're doing just walking down the exhibit floor. So I just want to say that real quickly. Thank you.
Louis?
And just a quick update, we, last time we were talking about the Walnut Creek Water Treatment Plant project, and we said we would be engaging with residents. And we've had one meeting so far with residents where we had very positive dialogue. They agreed that it was very positive dialogue. We're gonna have one more meeting. So I think we're making progress in that regard.
Wonderful. All right, if that's it for director comments. Jimmy, let me just address you. I won't be able to stay for your retirement celebration. So let me just say a few words from this seat on behalf of the full board. And I just want to briefly touch on your impact at the district. During your tenure leading the engineering and construction department, the department soared to new heights. In the past year alone, the department received several American Society of Civil Engineer awards, and just today the department received 2 awards, one from the Construction Management Association of America and another from the International Partnering Institute. These awards recognize the great work of many at the district, but I want to highlight one award that recognized Jimmy, and that's the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Society of Civil Engineers. Excuse me. Your almost 39 years of service at the district are commendable, and you've touched many with your commitment, leadership, and guidance. There is so much to cover regarding your time here, Jimmy, at the district, and Clifford will speak at the retirement celebration, as well as some other board members, about the varied path that you've had at the district. There will also be others that will share their time working with you. But I and the board of directors want to congratulate you on your career at the district. Congratulations, Jimmy. You have been formidable. And you should be proud of all that you have accomplished, and you will be missed. So thank you. I'm glad I actually got that on the record. All right, if there's nothing further, we're going to adjourn. Our next regular meeting of the Board of Directors will be held on Tuesday, July 9th, 2024 at 1:15 p.m. We're now adjourned.
And the celebration is right next door.
Celebration next door.